Welcome back to the kitchen, friends. I have the day off and I felt like making some buttermilk biscuits this morning for breakfast. So we're going to make them together. I'm going to show you how to do it. It's very easy, few ingredients. It's all about technique. So let's get into it. In this bowl, I have 10 ounces of flour. That's about 2 cups of all-purpose flour. I'm going to add a tablespoon of baking powder, 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, and 1.5 teaspoons of kosher salt. Make sure that's all in there. Mix it up, make sure it's combined. And then here I have a stick of butter. And because biscuits are basically a short crust, you have to cut the butter into the flour. That's the melting butter is what's going to help it rise and get those crispy, nice little layers. So that's what we're going to do now. Most places are going to tell you, put it in a food processor or try to cut it up with your fingers. Pastry knives, no need. If you got a box grater, this works perfect. So largest holes on your box grater. And I'm just going to cut the butter in. And about halfway through, I'll go in, toss the butter I have around, make sure that's coated in the flour. And because we want this butter to melt, to create those flaky layers, we want to make sure that it stays cold. So if your house is unusually warm, or if it's been sitting out for a while, or you get distracted, just toss it back into the fridge for about 10 minutes. Let it chill down, let it get nice and cold, then you can get back to work. But it is imperative that the butter stays cold so that you get those nice layers, you get the rise, and you get the nice little flavor that you want. As you get to the end of your end of your butter and get closer to the box grater, you'll notice that I kind of have it just resting in the palm of my finger or in the palm of my hand. That way I don't cut myself, take off a fingernail, as most people who have used box graters can tell you they've probably done, and it hurts like the dickens. So I've got my butter now cut into my flour. Here I have a 1/2 cup of sour cream and a 1/2 cup of buttermilk. If you don't have buttermilk, but you have regular milk, preferably whole milk and a lemon, then you're there. Take your milk, fill it to just below a 1/2 cup, and then juice the lemon into that milk and let it sit for a few minutes. It's not going to be exactly like buttermilk, but you're going to get the consistency and you're going to get that acidic tang that comes with buttermilk. So 1/2 cup of sour cream, 1/2 cup of buttermilk. We're going to now add that in. I have a wooden spoon here. I'm just going to start mixing it together so that it forms a rough ball. A shaggy dough, you could say, if you want to call it that. I'll clean my spoon off. But it's just now everything's starting to come together. Take a little bit more flour. Not a whole lot. Put it down on my cutting board, counter, whatever I'm using. And I'm going to kind of get it into the rough shape of a dough. If it sticks to your fingers, that's perfectly fine. Just add a little bit of flour to your fingers and it will come right off. But you'll notice that I have it here just not even really into a ball, but I have it fixed, or I have it starting to form a dough. So a little bit of flour on top. I'm going to start rolling it out. It seems a little odd that I would start rolling it out before I have it rolled up as a dough ball, but this way we don't overwork it. So roughly I'm going to fold the one ends over. So I've taken the top half, folded it in half, taken the bottom half, folded it. I'm going to take the either side, left or right, fold it in half, I'm going to roll it over, give it a little dusting with flour so it doesn't stick to my rolling pin. And then again, just try to roll it out. I'm trying to keep a rectangular shape. Fold the top, fold the bottom. We'll come from the right this time. Roll it over. A little bit of flour. Each time you fold it, you're creating, as you know, the layers of your biscuits. And so, usually about 3 times you'll have 27 layers. We're at 2, we'll probably go to 4. But as you can see, I started with a really rough ball. I started to roll it out before it was even a cohesive dough. But here, after I've turned it over 3 times, it's nice and uniform. It's not shaggy like it was. And it doesn't feel, there's not a whole lot of resistance to it, which is good. I'm just going to do the folds one more time. You do want to be careful that you don't overwork it, because then it won't be tender and flaky. But this recipe gives you a little bit more leeway. You don't have to be very delicate with it, which is nice. So I like my biscuits on the bigger side. This is probably 12 by 8. You want to try to get it as uniform as possible in thickness. So there you go, you're ready to go. You folded it 4 times, you've rolled it out. Now you've got a nice little dough. You can do one of 2 things. You can cut it into rounds, and if you cut it into rounds, use a cookie round that's 3 inches in diameter. If you do that, try to cut it as close as possible so that you don't waste a whole lot. But then you can take whatever's left over, ball it up, roll it out, and do it again. You can really only do that once before it really does start to get too tight, too chewy once you bake it. Just for the desire to not waste a whole lot, I'm going to cut it into squares. So I'll go in and I'll try to mark out 3. These will be a little wonky in size, but that's fine. I'm going to go through and cut out squares. Now, as you know, we'll bake those off separately for something else. As you know, it's only Audra and myself, so only 2 people. I'm going just to do 3 biscuits. But as you can see, if you look, you can see all of your layers that you've worked hard to get. And they look wonderful. So I'll leave that there. I have some melted butter here that I'm going to brush on top real quick so that they get nice and brown. A little extra butter never hurts. And these are going to go into a 425 degree oven for about 15 minutes. Rotate them halfway through and check them. And then we'll see you back here in about 15 minutes. Timer's just about to go off. It's been 15 minutes. So we'll go ahead and turn off the timer. Turn off the oven. And these look wonderful. They're nice, they're golden brown. You can see how much they've risen. You can see all of the layers that you've worked hard to fold in there. Just gonna take a little bit of butter, rub it right on top to give them a little extra glaze, because again, you can't go wrong with butter. There you have it. I'm going to let them sit for about 5 minutes. I'm going to throw some raspberry preserves from the garden from last year on them. And there you have it. At most 40 minutes from the time that you pull out your ingredients to the time that you have biscuits ready to go for breakfast. Not bad. And the wonderful thing is because they're a short crust, they will store very well in the freezer for months. So I took another sheet tray, put some parchment paper down on it, laid out my leftover biscuits and stuck them in the freezer. And once they're frozen, I'll take them off that parchment paper, stick them in a plastic baggie. Easily 3 months. They'll still be good. Probably even longer. And that's a nice thing, just to be able to wake up and say, you know what, I want a biscuit, and throw it in the oven. Again, 425, 15 minutes, and there you have it. Spent time now to have breakfast down the line whenever you want it. So if you make them, let me know. Enjoy.